betrayed with a kiss.
Welcome to Cross-Examination. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have with us Dr. Hani Ashmallah again to continue our discussion on the medical effects of the crucifixion. We covered certain theories of why Christ died, and he died at such a young age. So we went through 3 different theories. We discussed the biological effects of the actual crucifixion and also things that happened prior to Good Friday. And we're going to continue our discussion today once again on certain medical aspects of the physical crucifixion of Christ on the cross.
On the last episode, you were talking to us about, how the location of the nail was very crucial, both on the wrists and the feet. But you had mentioned that the nail on the feet was very crucial in his breathing. How so?
Yeah. See, there are people who could live up to 9 days on the cross. Let me rephrase that. The Roman crucifixion history have shown that survival on the cross can be as little as 3 hours, like close to our Lord, and as long as 9 days. The difference is how long the victim can breathe. He will eventually die of not able to breathe. Now, if you understand, if you don't mind, just hold this. If you understand how all of us breathe, we depend on the muscle here, which is called diaphragm, and the muscles in the chest. So I'm breathing, that's normal. But what happened is, if I am fixed on the cross, if you don't mind, I'm going to stand up. So the hands of our Lord like this. So what he does is, he pulls, takes a breath, and then he bends his legs. You understand? So he actually is pulling on the 2 nails to take an inspiration or inhalation, and then he is depending on the cross and the feet to bend down so he can relax here, so he can exhale or breathe out. And I mean, you can meditate on this. This is so hard to think of. And each breath caused him pain, caused him suffering. And that's why his words were very sparse on the cross. And that's why when he screamed and said, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, the voice of the loudness of the voice made everybody be surprised, because they saw a very frail man during the darkness. How was he able to all of a sudden cry out like this? And remember, he is the only one of the 3. He was nailed on his hands. The other 2 were robbed. So that's why he died earlier, because of the respiratory failure, because of the heart failure, because of the inability to breathe. While the others, if you remember, how did they die? They broke their legs. When you break your legs, I can't breathe anymore, because I'm depending on the feet to bend down or to pull up. If I can't depend on the nail, or I can't depend on the feet because my legs are broken, then the person dies right away. And that's why when they went to Christ, they found him dead. However, they went and broke the legs of the other guy. Thank you, sorry. Sure. So is that clear? You understand?
Yes, so he needed to put the weight on his legs for the
Correct.
mechanism of inhaling and exhaling.
Correct, yes. You got it, Marianne?
Yes, I do. It just amazes me, because then the amount of pressure that's also being forced on his hands and legs, because he's pulling on the nail now in order to lift himself and to bring himself down.
Yeah, and if you remember what David the king said in the main psalm that our Lord quoted on the cross, he said, I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart has turned to wax, and medically it almost looks like his heart is failing, like wax melting. It has melted away within me. That's the heart failure that medically we explain. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. And that's why he said, I'm thirsty, after the blood loss and the water loss we mentioned. You lay me in the dust of death. So again, all of this are related to the agony, the deprivation, the oxygen loss, and the inability to breathe.
So even further than that, so he's dealing with the inability to breathe, but then you have the spear where the soldier punctured his side. Can you explain why water and blood came out of?
But let us first remember why he was stabbed. When the two were broken their legs and they died, the centurion, who is a very experienced Roman, not just like almost a general, he wanted to make sure, certain that Christ have died. One of the ways back then, we are talking about first century, so there is no real medicine. You can't look in the eye of a patient and say, oh, he is dilated, fixed pupil, then he is dead. And there isn't a stethoscope to hear if there are heartbeats or not. What they used to do in the field, they used to poke you with a spear, or with a knife, or with a sword. If there is no blood comes out, because after you die, in minutes, there is a major clotting because there is no pumping, so there is nothing will come out. Because the clotting mechanism starts to work as long as there is no blood. So they stabbed our Lord to know if he's still alive or not, and all of a sudden there is water and blood came. And these more than likely, and I'll show you in the cross section in the picture, that more than likely the water came from fluid around the heart and fluid, as we call it, precardial effusion, or fluid around the lung. And then the blood may have been because it's going from the right, so it went from the right lung into the right ventricle, so there is blood and water came. The centurion screamed out saying, this is truly the Son of God. Probably one of the reasons that he had never seen a person who is dead, but in the same time has a flow of blood and water. And medically speaking, that by itself was a miraculous showing that our Lord with his death is giving life.
Why didn't he assume at that point that Christ was alive?
Why he didn't assume, or he assumed?
Why didn't he assume that he was alive, since blood did come forth?
I mean, all the other signs that he's dead. Okay. And they brought him down, and of course the centurions and the Roman has to confirm that he's dead, because if you remember, he had to write back to Pontius Pilate telling him he's dead, and Pontius Pilate said, how come he died that soon? If you remember, because it was 5 p.m., Saturday was coming in, and they had to bury him. So all the other signs is dead, but in the same time there was a miraculous sign, which our church of course loves because it represents the sacraments to us. But at the end of the day, to the centurion, was the sign of faith and belief.
So the spearing had no additive effect to the death of Christ?
No, I mean, he was dead already, but this is a sign for us that he gave us life through his death.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hani, for explaining to us, the detailed medical issues that Christ suffered on the cross, between the loss of blood and all the pain that he went through, and even the pain he had to withhold just to take a breath. Thank you so much for shedding light on all of this. Thank you for joining us. Cross-Examination Season 2. Thank you.
My body, my blood, betrayed with a kiss.